So I'm going to start off by passing it over and introducing my colleague, Peter Shumlin, former governor of Vermont and one of the co-directors here. And he's going to be sharing some of the history about our programs and our experience in Oxford.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you all for joining us today. It's delightful to have you with us. And Hannah and I are going to make we hope, a brief presentation. Then we'll do question and answers, as she mentioned at the end. Just to sort of bring you into the picture of Oxford academia and what it's all about. You'll see here on the left a picture of my parents, the founders of Putney, founded 74 years ago. Remember that was before commercial aircraft. One would go by ship if you wanted to go beyond the United States borders. And on the right is 4 generations of Putney leadership. You see my mom there, who my dad's passed away, but my mom is going to be 94 in February and still lives on the same land as Putney headquarters here in the barn in Putney, Vermont. You'll see my brother and I were the 2nd-generation leaders of Putney. And then my daughters, Olivia and Becca, who are 3rd-generation, and they'd be with us today, except they're in New York City in meetings today. And there you see 3-year-old Max Badger, who not giving us any ideas or anything, but there's a little pressure that he be among the 4th generation of leadership at Putney, but we haven't gotten him a desk yet. Next slide, please. Just to give you a little history, Putney was founded by my parents. They were educators and innovators. My dad was the product of World War II, who got sent to fight Hitler at the age of 17. That was his exposure to the world. My mom grew up in occupied Holland. So they were vastly influenced by the war. And they felt that by creating these educational programs, getting students learning together, living together, expanding knowledge, but most importantly, with international people from all over the world, they'd help to build world peace and understanding at a time when summer programs like this just didn't exist. The notion that you'd send your student to programs like this was not on the radar of most folks at that time. About 25 years after they founded Putney, Professor James Basker, who you see in this slide, founded a program at Oxford and Cambridge that was really so good that we were very excited to collaborate with them more recently with Oxford Academia. And I'll tell you the brief history of that. My folks had programs at Oxford and Cambridge so long ago that you'd have to go by ship, academic programs, long before Professor Basker was old enough to read, I would say. And they were very good programs. But when Professor Basker founded his programs, after several years, they were so good that we started recommending folks to them. And we discontinued our general programs at Oxford. Why did we do that? It's all about Jim Basker. Very briefly, his history is that he was born in a lumber town in Oregon without much resources, incredibly bright student who got a full scholarship to Harvard, where he received his BA. Then he became a Rhodes Scholar and got his master's at Cambridge University, his PhD, his doctorate at Oxford University at Christ Church College. And he then went on to teach at Oxford, at Harvard, at Columbia and Barnard, where he's been for many, many years. And he's currently also the president of the Gilman Lehrman American History Institute in New York. So that's a lot. But what's significant about this to our story and to this program that you're considering here, Oxford Academia's programs at Yale, at the American University of Paris, and at Oxford, is that Jim felt in his heart that when he got to Oxford, the tutorial system, the extraordinary history, the way that students had so much individual attention to each course, frankly, he kind of wished that he'd never gone to Harvard and he'd gone direct to the Oxford-Cambridge system. Therefore, as a young educator, he chose to start summer programs that would emulate the experience that he had at Oxford. And he did so. It was called Oxbridge Summer Programs. It was fantastic, and he ran it for many years successfully. There was some pressure on him as it grew, particularly from Barnard and Columbia University, to have him do that in the summertime, but be able to focus on his many jobs in New York City, teaching and leading Gilman Lehrman. during the winter. So he realized it was getting too big for him to administer. And he transferred it to a larger educational organization, thinking, I can still make the magic happen in the summertime, work with the faculty, the students, come back to New York and do my jobs. So he did transfer it, and that went quite well for a while. The important thing to know is that he then, the organization he transferred it got gobbled up by some venture capital thing or whatever. And he felt strongly that the Oxbridge program that he had created wasn't meeting the academic credentials that he felt so strongly about. And we teamed up and created Oxford Academia to carry on his extraordinary legacy. He's still directing it, he's still involved, and he's really good at it. Now, the obvious question is, why could Jim Basker run a program that was so much better than ours or anybody else's? And I think one of the reasons is this. There's two reasons in my view. The first is he got on the Rhodes Scholar Board 35 years ago, the American board, long after he had been a Rhodes Scholar, and he credited Rhodes House for really transforming his educational experience and turning him into the extraordinary educator that he is. He was then able, as Rhodes board members do, to help select the PhD candidates, the master's candidates, the Rhodes Scholars from around the world, mentor them through their programs, get to know them well, and then when they were done, he would turn to the ones that he was really excited about and say, hey, you know, you're the best physics professor I've seen in years coming along. Why don't you come work at my summer program before you go off and do whatever you're going to do in academic world? They would. And he just built a level of faculty that the rest of us couldn't get. Now, you'll find that there's lots of programs at Oxford and Paris and Yale and all over the place. The important thing to know about Oxford is Oxford University, which is made up of 36 constituent colleges, does not run summer programs. The programs are always a collaboration between one of the 36 colleges and an organization like us or others. What Jim managed to do was, in my view, create the best program at Oxford and in summertime. And frankly, that's what Oxford Academia is all about. And that's what we'll be talking about to you in this brief webinar. Next slide, if you would, John. We offer three programs that Hannah's going to talk to you more about. The Oxford program, as you can see, there are 3 sessions. They're 2-week sessions. The Paris program at the American University of Paris, which we'll talk later about more, 2 2-week sessions. And the program at Yale University, where there are also 2 2-week sessions. Hannah will talk about this more, but you're able to double up. In other words, some students say a 2-week session is perfect for me, a major and a minor. Other students say that's not enough. I'm going to double session. I want to do double sessions. So there are students that will stay for 4 weeks, choose 2 majors and 2 minors. There's a $1,000 discount whenever you double up programs. And you can also mix and match them. We have students who are accepted to Oxford and then transfer to the American University of Paris for 2 weeks. So in other words, you can mix and match them. That's true with a number of our programs. So that's the session dates. We're happy to talk to you individually about trying to match what you apply for with what your needs are. Next slide, John, if you would. I want to talk a little bit about, once you get there, what it's all about. And at Oxford in particular, as you know, the architecture, the history, the culture just exudes learning and a kind of spirit that allows you to explore subjects and each other in a way that wouldn't happen in many other places in the world. Students often ask, well, what are the students like? Who's eligible? We accept students in our admissions committee who are completing 8th through 12th grades. Most, the largest number, are completing 9th, 10th, and 11th grades, in other words, rising 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. They come from all over the country and all over the world. It's an incredibly diverse student body. They're motivated. They're bright students. If you're flunking out, this is not a great program for you. In other words, they're students who are doing well, who are curious, who want to learn at a level that you often can't get that kind of instruction for in a high school environment. And I think the other thing about our student body is it is very hard to answer the question, what are they really like? Because they are incredibly diverse. They will be students who are jocks, who are intellectuals, who are interested in sports, who are interested in the arts and theater, who are interested in literature and poetry, others who have entirely different interests, music or whatever. But the point is, there is no one student, and that's the beauty of the magic, is that you'll find that you've been accepted into a small group of intellectually curious students from all kinds of backgrounds, places in the world, languages spoken, although they're all good at English, because obviously this is a demanding program and our courses are taught in English, but it's a really diverse student body. And you make connections with them that frankly are tighter than most connections you'll make with people in experiences like this in your lifetime. That's our experience. The next slide, Joan, if you don't mind. I just want to talk a little bit about, in Oxford in particular, is what we're focusing on first here, where we are. If you look at the top left corner, we are at our main college is University College. University is the oldest college at Oxford. You can see that the bottom left shot here, literally the students at Oxford have drawn the code of University College in the green as you enter past the Porter's Lodge. The architecture is absolutely Harry Potter beautiful. You can see in the middle St. Mary's Church, which is right across the street from us. Remember, UNIV is almost 800 years old. That the architecture is extraordinary. St. Mary's is one of the oldest churches in Oxford, right across the street from UNIV, and you can see here that's where we have big gatherings. Right there you can see the students listening to a guest lecture at night. They get together for group meetings. They have all kinds of functions there. You can see on the bottom right a shot of Jim Basker lecturing to students about some of the history of the architecture and history of Oxford. There is no better historian about Oxford that tells a story better than Jim Basker. I can tell you that I have done a lot of things in my life. I've served as a governor. I've directed Putney for many years with lots of other people. I'm a fellow at Harvard at both the Kennedy School and the School of Public Health. I have served on boards of trustees of colleges and universities. Basker is one of the most charismatic, creative educators that I've ever worked with. Next slide, if you don't mind. Again, here, you can see Jim on the right leading students around Oxford. But here you see this, the architecture is amazing. The middle shot is our dining room at UNIV. That's where we take our breakfasts and our dinners. It's surrounded, it's absolutely gorgeous. It looks architecturally. The paintings on the walls depict the leaders of the universities over the years. As you can imagine, UNIV, because it's the oldest university, has had extraordinary graduates over the years. Many prime ministers graduated from the university. There are Americans that have studied there that you might be familiar with: Bill Clinton, Neil Gorsuch, poets, great literature figures in history, architects. It's very diverse. So I don't want to go on too long, except to simply say that we have found, and the beauty of this program is, that not only is it an extraordinary place in our small seminars to learn about subjects that you couldn't otherwise learn about in another environment, just because it exudes learning and intellect and obviously architectural beauty, but I think the other part is a really tight community that works together to produce a really positive outcome. Next slide. I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague Hannah, who's going to talk a little bit more about the individual seminars. So Hannah, take it away.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Pete. So right here, you have a list of all of the seminars that are offered on Oxford Academia this summer, and students will select both a major and a minor seminar, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a second. So with few exceptions, all of these seminars are offered both as majors and as minors, and in all 3 sessions of Oxford. The majors will meet for 6 days a week for 3 hours each morning for a total of 30 hours of seminar time. The minors meet 2 to 3 times a week for 2 hours for a total of 10 hours of seminar time. And all seminars are working towards some sort of a final project or presentation. And the major classes will present their final projects with the wider program community at our final night celebration. And this is not meant to be a high pressure assignment. It is fun, it is collaborative, and it really truly is a way to celebrate with everyone all that we have learned and to teach each other all the amazing things that we are taking away from our seminars. The final presentation could be a creative business pitch from the Business and Entrepreneurship Seminar, a one-act play from the Drama and Performance Group, or a series of short readings from the students in the Creative Writing Seminar. And it's so amazing to see what these students are able to produce in 2 weeks, and just wonderful to share that with the whole community. We recommend when you're choosing seminars to really pick a subject that you hope to dive into as your major, because you have the most time with that class and with that faculty, and maybe explore something entirely different and new to you with your minor. So it can be really hard to choose. There's a lot of fantastic faculty and fantastic seminars, so you can always give us a call. I do hire our faculty and I know them personally, and I'm always happy to share a little bit more about what these seminars are about. So our teachers are excited about learning, and it is contagious. Their teaching is imaginative, it's experimental, and it is very, very much student-centered. Learning is immersive on these programs, and we take advantage of all of the resources, all of the incredible talent that is available to us at the destination, whether we're in Oxford, Paris, or Yale. And we use the museums, the laboratories, the architecture of the city. All of that is an extension of our classroom. And it's important to know, too, that we don't hand our faculty a curriculum to teach, but rather we rely on them to build their courses using their passions, their life experiences, their professional experiences, while also getting to know their students, finding out what students are curious about, what questions do they have, and really take into account that, plus current events, what's happening in the world. What are some current exhibits that we could go to that would really, shed light on something that we're talking about in class. The seminars are not lecture-based. They're really built on this collaborative work, on debates and discussions, visits, and field excursions. So I'm going to go through a couple of examples of faculty in a little bit from Oxford, Paris, and Yale, and you'll see that they are just incredible people who have a true passion for sharing their knowledge with students. Most of our faculty regularly teach university level courses at the institutions where we're based, but they really love working with high school students on these programs and just relish the opportunity to get out of the classroom and to teach without the pressure of tests and grades and quizzes. Our faculty, if you read their bios on our web, you'll see that we're often joined by Rhodes Scholars, Marshall, Gates, and British Academy Scholars, by faculty who have teaching posts at Oxford, Tulane, Cambridge, Yale, the American University of Paris. And students will find in their instructors that they're not only inspiring teachers, but they really are mentors. They can talk to the students about the curiosity that they also had when they were a teenager, and where that took them, where they went to school, how they turned that into a career, what inspires them and continues them to, it propels them to continue learning. So they really do build a mentorship relationship. And in addition to their own expertise, they all have great connections in their field, and they often bring in guest speakers who can talk to the students about an aspect of the field that they're a specialist in. And we also, of course, head out on visits and take advantage of the resources that are at the university where we're based. And seminars are small. We do keep them, the biggest probably would be 15 students, but they're typically 10 to 12 so that the faculty can really quickly get to know every student in their course and address the specific questions and motivations that they come with. So I'll just tell you a little bit about some. It's really hard to choose. They're all amazing, the faculty, but I want to talk to you about just a few of them. So we have brought together a very unique group of esteemed faculty to teach on these programs, and they come back year after year because they love engaging with the caliber of student that chooses these programs. And these are students who bring a curiosity and an enthusiasm for learning, but they also bring a collaborative spirit. They want to learn and engage, as a team. Below are just a few examples of the incredible faculty who teach at Oxford. I'll start with Mahalia Mitrovic. She has taught architecture to students in Oxford for over a decade. She holds multiple master's degrees in film, cognitive science, neuroscience, and architecture, and she's currently pursuing a PhD in architecture and neuroscience at the University of Cambridge. Her course is always a favorite. She challenges her students to really dig into the myriad of ways that humans interact with their built environment. Pablo Wickham is a Rhodes Scholar from Jamaica, and he's currently pursuing his PhD in clinical neuroscience at Oxford, having received his undergraduate degree from Wesleyan in both neuroscience and theater. He has appeared on the TED Talk stage at Wesleyan. He was an All-American mock trial competitor, and he's actively involved in theater at the Oxford Playhouse. And his students have described him as dynamic and inspiring, and they love his creative approach to helping them hone their public speaking skills. Victoria Taylor is a PhD candidate at the University of Oxford, having received her master's from Oxford in refugee and forced migration studies. And she's a great example of one of our teachers who brings to her course not only her educational background, but also her years of working with and advocating for asylum seekers and refugees in the UK rather. And she also brings in her experience working with legal aid clinics. So in her criminology and justice seminar, students are encouraged to position their own experiences within academic sociological framings, to question their held assumptions, and to think more critically about criminal justice systems. Craig Masbach is incredible. He received his bachelor's from Princeton, his law degree from Yale, but his connection to Oxford is 2 years he spent there as a Caseby scholar, where he incidentally was Jim Basker's roommate. And while at Oxford, Craig ran his first sub-4-minute mile on the Iffley Road track, which is where Sir Roger Bannister ran history's first sub-4. And Craig has taught our sports business and media course these past couple of years, bringing with him his 40 years experience working in and around sports as a professional track and field athlete, but then also as a TV sports commentator who covered 5 Olympic Games for NBC. He was a CEO of US Track and Field, and he was a top senior executive at Nike. So he has taught classes at the Yale Law School and Stanford on sports law and sports and society, and is just a very well-connected and incredible person. So lucky to have him. This is the Oxford daily schedule, and this is what a typical day might look like. So breakfast is at the college, which is a buffet style meal, and it can accommodate most any dietary restrictions. After breakfast, students will head off to their major seminar, and the majors meet Monday through Saturday from 9 till 12 in the morning. And then lunches head out in Oxford, and this is a great opportunity to explore the city. You can visit a food stall, an Oxford historic covered market, you can grab some sushi or a sandwich and head to one of the green spaces for a picnic. And there's also time in there to kind of get together with friends from other seminars, take some time to relax, play some Frisbee, go back to the dorm, do some laundry, go for a quick run in Christchurch Meadow before your minor class at 2. It's a little bit of a break in the middle of the day. And then after our minor seminars, which take 2 hours from 2 to 4, we have afternoon activities, which allows students to continue to experience Oxford, joining up with students from other seminars who share similar interests. And the faculty and staff will lead multiple activities each afternoon. So it's a great opportunity to interact with instructors from other seminars who you might not be taking a course with. So typical offerings include punting on the river, we go to high tea, watercolor lessons in the botanical gardens, all kinds of different sporting activities on the green, or a visit to the famous Bodleian Library. We head back to the colleges for dinner. Dinner is by college, and then students can select from a variety of evening activities that are on offer. Theater and concert performances happen regularly in Oxford. We do historical walking tours led by our faculty. Jim loves to lead these when he's there. And then we also have our guest speaker series. So each academia program will welcome guest experts to join our evening lecture series. And these are evening events that might take the form of a TED Talk style lecture followed by a Q&A. We could have a panel discussion, lively debate, performances, and our guest experts that come in, they represent a variety of fields. And we have been joined previously by Olympians, journalists, renowned academics, stars from the West End and Broadway, and Pulitzer Prize winning authors. We'll have, 2 to 3 different guest speakers per week. And so there's an opportunity to hear from lots of different experts and lots of different points of view. So we're still finalizing our guest list for 2025, but below are 2 examples of speakers who joined us last year and who are going to be joining us again this year. Dr. Olivia Risland is a Rhodes Scholar who received her doctorate from Oxford, and she's now an associate professor of biochemistry and molecular genetics at the University of Colorado School of Medicine. And during her time with students, she shares her passion for science research and the power of scientific curiosity. Strawn Murray has a PhD in genetics and is a lecturer at biochemistry at the University of Oxford. But he joined our program last summer to speak about his experience writing the Orphans of the Tide trilogy, which is a young adult fantasy series. And his lecture was open to the entire program, but I know that students in the creative writing seminar really enjoyed the opportunity to have a Q&A with someone about his journey as a young novelist. So we're going to be confirming our guest speakers for all of our programs and posting them to our website, so you can definitely check there for those. Outside of the seminars, we really try to take advantage of all there is to see and do. So on the weekend, on the Sunday in between the 2 weeks of seminars, students can choose to go on a bigger excursion outside of Oxford. A private bus will take students up to Stratford upon Avon to explore the birth and burial place of William Shakespeare. And then we stay there for dinner and a show, which is wonderful. Students can also visit Stonehenge, or they can take a short bus ride over to Blenheim Palace, which is pictured here. And that's a UNESCO World Heritage Site and the ancestral home of Winston Churchill. It has gorgeous gardens, an amazing rose garden, and just a beautiful place to spend a lovely day. So those are things that they can do. But then the faculty will also take students into London on themed excursions. So a way to really get away from the traditional sites and the tourist track, but experience London in a unique way. So for example, the history teacher might take students on a visit to the historical sites and some of the lesser known museums and spots. The creative writing teacher might take students off to experience London through a literary lens. And one of the art historians might take students to the Borough Market and some of the art galleries there. So it's a really fun way to kind of see London in a different way than you might see it if you were traveling with your family or as a tourist. For students staying 2 sessions, we do offer excursions in between the 2 as well. And in the past, we visited Cotswolds, Bath, and also ventured into London on some other themed programs. So that's it for Oxford. I'm going to quickly pass it back to Pete to introduce our Paris Academia program, and then I'll tell you a little bit about those seminars and that structure as well.
Thank you, Hannah. So the American University of Paris is another Jim Basker story that I just want to share with you. I mentioned earlier that his strength, one of his many strengths, the reason the program is so good is that where there's a faculty that Hannah just showed you, many of those people they were all Rhodes Scholars who Jim brought along to teach at summer programs of his, and they've been with him, stuck with him ever since. The American University of Paris story is based on that same relationship. As you probably know, most French universities don't have dormitories. If you go to the Sorbonne, whatever, you usually, you have to go find an apartment, whatever it is. So when you find summer programs for high school age students in Paris, generally they're staying in boarding high schools outside of Paris, and you have to sort of take long trips out the outskirts, and they tend to be, let's just say, less pointed than our private high school system here in the United States. The American University of Paris is one of the exceptions to the rule. Wonderful university, students from all over the world. The main university is in the 7th arrondissement, which is one of the most prominent areas of Paris, although it wasn't, frankly, back in the years when they founded the university. Absolutely gorgeous, lots of embassies and just a really great little shops and restaurants. And their dormitory, their residences are old buildings, some on the Champs-Élysées, that they bought way back when real estate was cheap in Paris and universities could afford it. They've converted them into gorgeous little apartments, really, for students, 6 suites with 6 to 8 students, a little kitchenette overlooking the Seine, right in downtown Paris. And they're absolutely gorgeous. The bottom line is they would never, in the past anyway, that I know of, allow high school students from anywhere to be residences of those extraordinary facilities. The story, in short, is that one of the Rhodes Scholars that Jim mentored to Oxford came back to teach at his summer programs. Then she led his program in Paris that he had there for a number of years. She became the president of the American University of Paris and said, hey, we would love to have you, because I know you and I love you, join our community here. So that's the reason that we got the entree to the American University of Paris. We've been there for a number of years. It's an unbelievable facility. In addition, it's in the heart of the downtown. So we're allowed to fashion seminars that Hannah will talk to you about shortly that use Paris and the surrounding areas of Paris as our classroom, whether it's, going to the Sorbonne, whether it's the Musée d'Orsay, whether it's taking an excursion down to Chartres Cathedral, whatever it is, we are in the heart of it. And we really take advantage of all that Paris has to offer by being right there in this extraordinary university, not having to travel by metro 45 minutes or an hour to get to wherever we're staying. So we're thrilled to have this partnership with the American University of Paris. And I'll turn it over to Hannah to tell you more about the program itself.
Sure. Yeah. As Pete said, we're based at AUP, which is located in the 7th arrondissement, and that's the absolute heart of Paris and just an absolutely beautiful neighborhood. It's a collection of just about a half dozen buildings or so on the left bank near the Eiffel Tower in Invalides and on the Seine. The buildings at AUP have been recently overhauled, which makes the classroom space perfect and ideal for our small group seminars. And Pete talked a little bit about the accommodations, and the only downside I will say to them is they will completely spoil students for their future dormitory living experiences. They're absolutely gorgeous. They're in beautiful neighborhoods, and really just a wonderful place for our groups. So we have 2 residences, both owned by AUP, and one is a more traditional dormitory, and the other is the student apartments Pete mentioned. And you can see in this slide in the bottom left-hand corner, a courtyard, and that is the courtyard. Those are our apartments in those glass buildings there. And what's really amazing about this, these apartments are located about midway down the Champs-Élysées, which is just an incredible central location. You walk out the front door, the Arc de Triomphe and Louis Vuitton's off to your right, your left, you walk to the right, and you head towards our classrooms at AUP. They're on this street that is so central to everything, but they're set one courtyard back from the Champs-Élysées, so it's very quiet. It feels very secluded. And the apartments themselves are gorgeous. Students are in doubles, and there will be 2 to 6 students per apartment, and they share a kitchen and they share a big common space. There's laundry on site, multiple bathrooms, of course, in the apartment as well, views from the Eiffel Tower in some of the rooms. So really just incredible places for our students to be able to go back to and rest up. The courtyard and the common space are really ideal as well for after a long day out with our seminars. If we want to come back and relax, maybe have a crepe making class and spend some time together, it's great for that as well. The second residence is in the 16th arrondissement, and it's all single rooms with ensuite bathrooms. So a different style in that every student would get their own room, have their ensuite bathroom. There's a common space and kitchens that are shared on each floor of this dormitory, and there's a courtyard as well that we utilize. And this is in an absolutely beautiful neighborhood. It's very residential, so very different from the Champs-Élysées. And it boasts numerous embassies, museums, a lot of trendy cafes and restaurants, and one of the premier grocery stores in Paris, which is great for picking up snacks or treats that you want to bring back home to your family. So both of the locations are wonderful. It's important to know that this is an urban university experience and that we commute to class each day, usually by foot. You can, in the one of the dormitories does have great metro access if you prefer, but it's about a half-mile walk between the residence and the AUP classrooms, and it's a really beautiful commute. So we walk over to AUP. We have breakfast in our cafe there. So our friend Antonine, he makes us a custom-made breakfast every morning with fresh croissants and pain au chocolat. There's yogurt, there's fruit, there's cereal, and we have this incredible breakfast before we head up to the classrooms to meet up with our instructors for the seminars. All students have passes to AUP, which means they can get into the student spaces, the libraries, and the museums. So as with Oxford, students choose a major and a minor seminar, and the seminars listed here are all available as a major and a minor with 2 exceptions, and that is creative writing is only available as a major, and conversational French is only offered as a minor. And the structure of the Paris program is slightly different from that we described for Oxford, because as beautiful as the classrooms of AUP are, the city of Paris itself just has unparalleled resources in its museums and its history, its architecture, and the cultural scene. So we are joined by extraordinary faculty, many of whom are full-time professors at AUP or the Sorbonne, who've leapt at the opportunity to use those resources of Paris in their teaching and to use the streets of Paris as their classroom. So in order to allow time to get out into the city each day, seminars are giving more uninterrupted time. So majors will meet 4 full days a week, from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. in the afternoon, 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and minors will meet 2 days a week. So it's the same amount of time, 30 hours with the major, about 10 with the minor, but you have entire days with your one class. I'll go over this a bit more when we get to the daily schedule, but first I just quickly wanted to talk about some of the faculty in Paris. So these are some of the faculty who have been with us for the past 3 years and are joining us again this year, and they're just phenomenal. Ziad Majed is a renowned professor at the American University of Paris, and he's been teaching law and society with us. He is so impactful and so inspirational that we have had multiple students who've joined our program in Paris return to AUP before or during their college study abroad specifically to study with him again. He is just amazing. He speaks French, English, and Arabic fluently, and he is an expert in Middle East history, politics, and relations. In addition to teaching, he also gives an amazing evening presentation as one of our guest speakers that's related to his work and research, and that is always just a huge highlight. Emile Bertherat is a Paris native, and he has a degree from the Sorbonne in film studies and a master's in art theory. He also studied at the NYU Tisch School of the Arts, and he lectured on cultures and languages at Stanford before he returned to France. He has taught our French language Streets of Paris course and our art history course, which he's taught both in Paris and on Oxford. And his immersive Streets of Paris language program gets students out into the city that he knows so well, having grown up there, and practicing their comprehension, their speaking, building their confidence in their vocabulary, and really engaging in the language. And additionally, he lives in a neighborhood where much of Emily in Paris has been filmed, and he offers a very popular afternoon activity to fans of the show, where he takes them out to see some of the places where Emily has been filmed. So he's beloved. Students love learning with him in the field. Vanessa, also incredible. She's received her PhD in modern European history from UC Berkeley before she moved to Paris, and she's been there for many, many years. She is passionate about the cultural heritage, international relations, and education. She has, for over 10 years, she's been teaching in universities, including the American University of Paris. And she's also worked at the UNESCO World Heritage Center and in museum education. And she teaches a really unique course called History of Paris, which really explores Parisian history and it exposes the magic of Paris through visits to not oft visited museums and sites, and really immerses students in a unique side of Paris that very few people get to see. So her course is also just incredible and beloved. I'll quickly walk you through the sample schedule for a major day. So after breakfast, the major classes will head out for the day. They might start in a classroom for some background or context. So the business course might work through comparing economic models, or perhaps the fashion design and culture course might have a morning spent workshopping with different fabrics, but then they head out into the city after that. So they have both options of classroom or field-based. And then lunch is head out in small groups of 3. So much like in Oxford, lunch is head with students, wherever the course happens to be at that time. The students then get to explore that neighborhood with their lunch. And that's a great chance to practice your French. That's a great chance to try different foods. And of course, the faculty will be with them and will let them know, there's a great creperie over here, or there's a great restaurant I'm going to. But the students can take that opportunity to explore in small groups of 3. After lunch, the major classes continue for a few hours, and then the minor day is very similar. However, the minor class would wrap up a little bit earlier, allowing for more extensive afternoon activities. So you can see here how the Paris classes programs are a little bit different than the Oxford program. But as in Oxford, multiple activities are offered every afternoon and every evening. So afternoons might include 6 different afternoon activities that students can choose from, all faculty-led or leader-led, so that students can really explore many different aspects of Paris. Things have included visiting Notre Dame for a VR experience, which they're doing now to show its history and its reconstruction, an art and architecture walking tour of the Marais, a bookstore crawl. Emile loves to lead a bookstore crawl where he takes students to Shakespeare and Company and then some of the lesser known Paris bookstores, visiting Musée d'Orsay, or just heading back and doing laundry and making those crepes back at the residence if students are tired and they want a little bit of a break or just need some clean laundry. So we really try to have activities that match every interest and energy level, taking into account the weather and all of those things. But they're all designed to get students out, engaging with one another, connecting with the faculty and staff who have so much to teach them, and enjoying Paris in unique and intimate ways. So evenings also offer plenty of activities. Paris, there's no shortage of things to do in Paris at night. Again, these are all led by faculty and staff, so students are not out on their own in the evening times, but we'll go to jazz concerts. We've done evening cooking classes. All of the museums will have evening events and evening open hours, which is a great time to get out into the museums when they might be a little bit less busy. French cinema. These are all wonderful things that we can do in the evenings. But we also have our guest speaker series in Paris as well. So I'll quickly walk you through some of those who've been with us in the past, and I hope will be joining us again this year. Catherine Down is a James Beard nominated food, humor, and travel writer who's written for the New York Times, Condé Nast Traveler, the Food Network, and McSweeney's, among others. She has a master's in food culture and communication and has turned her love of French food and her experience working on farms in France into a career that she enthusiastically shares with our students. She has joined our French cuisine seminar for explorations of the various culinary neighborhoods in Paris. And then she also joins for an evening presentation to the whole program. And I will say that I also had the pleasure of sampling a trio of soufflés with her when I was in Paris last summer. And I can definitely say she knows what she's talking about. Alexis Tadi is another one of our guest speakers. He is a professor of English literature at the Sorbonne and a distinguished scholar, writer, and public intellectual who's authored many, many books. His work focuses on literature and its philosophical dimensions when it travels to other parts of the world, such as India or the Middle East specifically, and also when it's confronted with social practices such as sports. He has served as the French cultural attaché to the French embassy in Syria, and he is the director of doctoral studies for modern languages at the Sorbonne. His lecture is always current. So last summer, for example, he spoke to the group about sports and cinema as it related to the Paris Olympics, which were occurring there. As wonderful as Paris is, we do, as in Oxford, take the opportunity on the weekend to get out of the city and see some of the magical places that are just a short distance away. The Saturday Major Seminar uses this as an opportunity to further explore the topics they are learning about using sites outside of the city. So Paris and the Creative Imagination might head to Claude Monet's house in the gardens at Giverny, the location that has been said to inspire some of his most famous paintings, of course. And then just north of Paris, Château de Chantilly is an ideal day trip for our students in the French cuisine seminar and our French language seminar as well. And then Versailles is often visited by art history students. So lots of opportunities to kind of get out and see some of these other places outside of the city. The second Sunday of the program offers a few excursions. Last year's group, for example, visited the seaside fisherman town of Honfleur and the Normandy, which is in the Normandy region, and it's known for its medieval wooden churches and its Northern European style architecture, which you can see there. And students also went horseback riding in Deauville, which is one of France's most famous equestrian towns, and it's a very popular beach getaway for Parisians. So on a nice day, that's a wonderful place to spend a Sunday. Another group last summer headed out to the Loire Valley to visit the Chateau Chambord, which is a spectacular chateau built in the 16th century, and it's set on 13,000 acres of protected gardens and hunting grounds. So we can go hiking or paddle boating, biking all around there. I'm going to now quickly turn it back to Pete, and he will introduce our Yale program.
Thank you, Hannah. I'll do it quickly because I'm watching the clock. We don't want to keep you too long. But Yale, Putney's had a long, as has Professor Basker, a long history with Yale. The beauty of Yale, as you probably know architecturally, it was a copy of many of the Oxford University buildings. They just did it in 2 or 3 times the size because it was several hundred years later that they began to build Yale University. So it's an absolutely fantastic place for Oxford academia if you want to study here in the United States at one of the leading universities of the world. The structure is very much similar. You can go to the next slide, John. Is very similar to what Hannah has just described, both at Oxford and Paris. We live in the dormitories of Yale, which are beautiful. We take breakfast, lunch, and dinner in the Yale dining halls, and we have all of the resources of Yale University at our fingertips: libraries, art collections, extraordinary architecture, knowledge, and just a fantastic environment for learning. So really, Yale and Oxford are very similar in terms of structure of the day, academic program combined with great community activities going on afternoons, evenings, and weekends. These are not programs where you just sort of sit around in your residence after seminar and play with your gadget. You're always engaged in some fantastic choice that you make to stay engaged. And don't forget, Yale is a short hop to New York City, New Haven. It's a short hop to so many areas of cultural and educational learning that we are really excited to be collaborating and using Yale University's facilities once again. So Hannah, I'll turn it over to you to quickly walk through the schedule. I know it's very similar to Oxford, but
It is.
seminars are somewhat different.
Yeah. So it's similar to Oxford, and students pick a major and a minor, and the schedule in Yale mirrors that of Oxford, with majors meeting for 3 hours in the morning, 6 days a week, and the minors meeting 2 to 3 afternoons a week in the after. Again, like in Oxford, seminars take place in classes located close to our Yale residents, but we do get out and use the campus and their resources. As with Oxford and Paris, many of our faculty and staff are graduates or researchers at Yale or graduates at the university, and their familiarity with the campus brings an unquestionable depth to their seminars and their ability to kind of bring campus living to life for the students on the program. The next slide, I've got a couple of bios from the faculty from this past summer. Hector Peralta just completed his PhD at Yale in American Studies, and he taught our Politics and Human Rights course last summer, and students very much loved his course. His research in writing and teaching is focused on better understanding how ideas of race and ethnicity shape U.S. history. Dimitrios Taseos is a crypto consultant. He was a senior cryptocurrency risk analyst working for CipherTrace, which is a MasterCard company. And he regularly publishes about the crypto landscape. And last summer, he was so excited to join us and teach students about the history of currencies before he dove into the topics of cryptocurrency, blockchain, and simulated transactions. I don't think there's a lot of courses out there for high school students focused on this type of finance and crypto. So he was very excited to work with high school students on this. He's got over 35 years of experience, 5 years working in crypto, 18 years with banking, and 13 years he worked as a teacher in his homeland of Greece. Millie Lawrence has studied psychology at the University of Bath before coming to Yale, and she's a researcher in the Department of Psychology at Yale. But as an undergraduate, she created a smartphone app that collects decision-making data, which is being used to benefit research that's being done globally. So she was able to share with students her journey, why she loves doing the research she does. Her seminar covers a wide range of topics, ranging from cognitive neuroscience to clinical psychology. And using her connections and her experience at Yale, she was able to take the students on some incredible field trips, including to the Cushing Center at Yale's Medical Library. The schedule, as I mentioned, is very similar to Oxford. So after breakfast, majors meet in the classrooms, lunches in the cafeteria in New Haven. There might be times when we go out into New Haven to get a slice of pizza or in small groups, but lunches in the cafeteria, it is quite fantastic. The minor classes then meet in the afternoons before afternoon activities. And you can see one of the quads up there in that picture. That's us having a big community meeting and talking about the day's events. So we have this amazing outdoor space that we can use for our afternoon activities. There's the athletic facilities as well at Yale that we can use, the botanical gardens, bookstore crawls. There apparently is a cat cafe in Yale that was quite popular. Visits to nearby beaches and parks, tennis, basketball. We try to have something to kind of meet everybody, where they're at, and help bring students together to make connections with people they might not have met yet. After dinner in the dining hall, faculty and staff lead evening activities. Last summer's group went to some minor league baseball games. This was actually something that was open to everybody, but was part of the curriculum for the sports business course and the math, statistics, and probability course. They used what they learned at the game in their classes, which was exciting. And then New Haven hosts a tremendous number of festivals during the summer. There's the International Film Festival, there's theaters and concerts. The museums host special evening events in the evening times. And then also just getting into the Yale facilities for nighttime basketball has been a real highlight as well. So we welcome suggestions from students and kind of see what they're interested in doing. We also have our guest speakers. Last year, we were visited by Hank Rousseau, who is a former teacher of ours, actually, originally from South Africa, and he's now on the faculty at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. He has a debut book of poetry, which won the Poetic Justice Institute Editors Prize, and his poems have been recognized and celebrated around the world. He is an editor for Tupelo Quarterly and a consulting editor for the African Poetry book series at the University of Nebraska Press. And hopefully he'll be joining us again this summer. And then, of course, you already met Pete, Governor Peter Shumlin. He joined us last year and spoke with the students with a really meaningful event about his time as governor, but really specifically focusing on his efforts to address climate change, health, and policy. The excursions we do in Yale, as Pete mentioned, New York is just a short ride away from New Haven, and students have the opportunity to explore it in small chaperone groups. It always says little corners and big views to discover, and excursions are open for first-time visitors as well as those who've been there before. Last year's group went to the Museum of Modern Art. They took the ferry to take in the views of the Statue of Liberty, Central Park, Grand Bazaar. Some students participated in a bagel making workshop. And that's if students are from New York or don't want to go to New York, we have all kinds of different things we can do from New Haven as well, hiking in the hills nearby, going to the beach, or other local chaperoned excursions. So that is it for our 3 programs. I'm going to pass it back to Pete to talk a little bit more about the application process. And then if there's any questions that came in, we can go ahead and address those.
Thank you, Hannah. Great job. We are often asked, what about admissions? How does it work? And I'll be very brief. We have a rolling admissions process. That means we're constantly having admissions meetings and making decisions. So it is a first come, first serve based upon your acceptance and obviously room being available. The way the application process works is you go and hit apply now on the website, fill out the application form. That can be done by parents or students. It's just basically contact information, a little bit of other details. You make a $700 deposit on MasterCard, Visa, or whatever it is, and you submit that. You also have to choose your major and minor courses of study. Then admissions will get right back to you saying, hopefully, yes, we have space, and we have space in your majors and minors. Next stage is we will ask you to write a statement. It's not your college essay, but a paragraph or 2 helping us to know you better, why you want to do this, what you want to gain from it. We will also ask you for the emails of 2 teachers or advisors that know you best at school. We reach out to them. Once all of that is here, you go to admissions. If you're in, away we go. If you're not, we credit your credit card the $700 and suggest that you find something else for this summer. When you fill out that original application, that creates a digital locker, and that's important. You want to hold on to that because it becomes your access to information from the program from that point forward. So that is where you will get your clothing equipment list, information about your teachers, information that you're going to need about transportation, where to go, where to be, when to be. And also importantly, during the summertime, it becomes the portal for the blog that is often student created, always student created, that will help keep parents and folks back home in touch with what's going on at your particular program. So that's the process. The only thing I want to caution you about is we've been here for 74 years. We get lots of applications. So if it's something that you're excited about, call us, ask us questions. We're always happy to answer them. We love hearing from you. We love making sure that you're making the right choice for you and it's the right fit. But don't waste time. Get on it because we're already slammed with applications for summer 2025. So that's the process. And we're going to now turn it over to any questions that you might have, unless I forgot something important, Hannah, which I may well have. That's it. Rebecca.
Hi. So now is the time if you have questions that you would like Hannah or Pete to answer, please drop them in that Q&A. This first question has a lot to do with the domestic programs. Could you touch on a little more what the rooms available to students on domestic programs?
Sure. Yeah. So we're I would expect them to be doubles, double rooms. Sometimes we're still finalizing what our precise housing is, but they're double rooms. Sometimes they're double rooms that share a common space, like a suite. So there'll be a common space with 3 double rooms off that. Bathrooms are shared on the hall. Students are separated by gender identity, bathrooms by gender identity as well. But very rarely would we have singles. It's almost always doubles. The dormitories are absolutely lovely at Yale. Beautiful spaces, large rooms, linens are included, very comfortable living.
And a good taste of college life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's an important point. I just want to add to what Hannah said, which is one of the goals of this program isn't just to have a seminar and a community that you're learning together with that's going to inspire you in ways that really help you make college choices, we hope. But the other piece of it is that's important is we want this to be as much like the college experience. I can tell you from talking to admissions folks at Harvard, where I spent time, but this is true across the board, is that college admissions offices, and this isn't really talked about, but in addition to all the other things that they care about, they really want to know more and more, because since COVID, they're dealing with more and more folks who come with so much anxiety and other issues that they struggle in their first few months at university. They want to know that you've gone to a program like this, that you've thrived and succeeded. And therefore, we choose dormitories at all of our universities that are as much like your freshman experience at college as we can possibly create. And that's important. It's an important piece of the program.
We have a question that asks if a student's applying to university, are these programs something that will help with the application process?
So here's the answer to that. We don't want you applying because you think it'll help you get into university, because we want you to be there because you want to be there to be part of this extraordinary academic experience. Having said that, there is no question that our alumni get accepted to some of the great universities of the world. And we know that the admissions folks are familiar with our programs, they respect our programs. And I think, as I just mentioned, more and more, they are encouraged by students who successfully complete these programs and succeed in them, because it suggests that they're going to do the same at their university. So, to say, and I think the third point, and this is probably important, is from your own standpoint, getting ready for university, being in a situation that is going to teach you the subtleties, joys, and challenges of going as a new student when you don't know other students to a new place to learn is definitely an important thing to have experience in as you apply for universities and colleges. So the answer is, we think it helps, but we want you to come because we're enthusiastic about making a positive contribution to the program and getting a lot out of it. And one of the side benefits is we expect it will help you in the college admissions selection and admissions process.
If I can add to that just quickly, Rebecca, for the next one, I think too, these programs really focus on building so many skills that are useful to someone in life, but when they go to college, and I think that often reflects in their way in which they approach their college applications, their critical thinking skills that they've developed. And then I talked a lot about the faculty and didn't really talk very much about the incredible staff that also joins the program. They're often undergraduates at the universities where the programs are based. They have studied abroad, and they really can speak to the students about a variety of different paths one may take in terms of where they study, what they study, and how they get there. And I think that gives a confidence that helps students when they're entering into that college application process that nobody maybe intended for that to be the consequence, but I think it's incredibly helpful to hear so many different perspectives on a path you could take, and it just gives them a leg up going in.
And just the last thing I'll add to Hannah's points on this subject is important. The level of anxiety that is now created for both parents and students applying to university has risen to levels that one could argue are no longer constructive. One of the things that we try to do in all of these programs is bring in admissions folks and other folks to help demystify the process, to help bring down the level of kind of pressure and hysteria, and to get it down to a point where you start to ask the question, because this is what really matters. What university makes sense for me? What college makes sense for me? And how does the process really work? And we try to demystify that in all these programs. We're bringing in folks who are very familiar with the process.
Great. And with so many options of programs, particularly at Oxford colleges, what makes our program different?
Well, Hannah, I'll give you a crack at this one, but I'll just say very quickly, I think there's four things. One is we have a level of educational leaders because of Jim Basker's experience with Rhodes House and all the things we've already told you, that will allow you to be in small seminars with instructors that frankly you would never get even in the best high schools in America. So the seminars are truly extraordinary. I think the second piece is we care about community in ways, because we've been doing this for 74 years and it really matters to us, that is probably more important than ever in a world that is divided, in a world that had been isolated by COVID, in a world where students missed a lot during those years. And what I mean by that is we really care not only about what happens in the seminar room, but every minute of the program when you're not in seminar. It doesn't mean that we'll always be telling you what to do, but it will mean that if you don't make choices to be doing athletic, artistic, all the great things in the afternoons and evenings, someone's likely to pull you aside after a day and say, hey, come join us. We're heading up to Shakespeare in the Park. You should come with us. Or we're going to a cricket game match. A few marks. Do you know about cricket? No, we don't either. Let's go. Or whatever it is, we engage you in ways where you're not sitting in your dormitory, as I mentioned, in the residence, sort of playing with your gadget, feeling lonely, isolated, and alone. It's very much a community where you're in and on all the time. Third, I would say the collaborations that we have with the colleges at Oxford, with Yale University, with the American University of Paris really matter because we are choosing the best, in our view, of the exposures that you're going to have to a university setting. And finally, this is probably most important, you will find if you dig into it that there's two kinds of summer programs. There are those that are sort of now owned by venture capital folks where their main focus, in my view, is business and finance. Then there are those who are run by smaller organizations that really care about you and your educational outcome. And that is the motive of their operation, education, not finance. And that's a distinction that kind of gets lost in the ether that I think is very important. What did I miss, Hannah?
I think you got it all. I think, yeah, our focus on just student welfare, safety, well-being. You've already heard me talk about the academics and all the opportunities and exposure students have, but it's so amazing as somebody who's not a teacher, but who's been on the other side of student welfare, just hearing how excited they are about what they're learning and helping them get the most out of that opportunity. I'd say that we're committed to every single student as an individual, which is exhausting and also so vastly rewarding.
All right, well, the questions have slowed down. We addressed the ones that were there. Let's close out with, if a parent is dropping their student off or picking them up, what about a tour? Is that possible?
Yeah, with pleasure. We've got so many incredible faculty and staff who know Oxford, who know Paris. And so, we loved when parents can drop their student off, see what they're getting into, and then, head off on their own adventures, hopefully. But yeah, we do coordinate those closer to the date. So if you're interested in that, when you apply to the program, you'll get introduced to your program director. You can let them know if you're going to be dropping off your student and if that's something you're interested in, and we'll coordinate that closer to the date. But that can be a great way to kind of get an insider's view yourself. Or you can wait until you pick your child up at the end and then they can give you the tour. That's also great as well.
All right.
Hey,
well, any final comments?
Thanks so much for joining us. We've gone 4 minutes over our time allotted. And, all I can say is we love hearing from you. We are a small organization. I welcome your calls. Anna welcomes your calls. We all welcome your calls. But don't hesitate to pick up the phone if you have something that you don't dare ask in a group. But we want to make sure that this is going to be the right fit for your student and that they're going to gain from it, grow from it, and have the kind of life-changing experience that will help define their future, which is really what Putney and Oxford Academia is all about. So thanks for joining us.